Unfortunately, dentistry has a title that's not one that anybody should be proud of, and that is it has the highest level of suicide of any occupation in the United States. That's how I lost my dad about 2.5 years ago. I want people to, as you said, pour into themselves so that they can then go pour into their patients, into their team, into their spouse, into their kids. But if you don't take care of you first, you're trying to pour out of an empty bucket. It doesn't work. You are trying to take care and serve everyone else first. That's the most selfish thing you can do.
How would you describe a good leader? Confident? Responsible? Charismatic? How about vulnerable? A risk taker? An excellent communicator? A servant? J.M. Ryerson joins me today to discuss principles and strategies on how to lead effectively, authentically, and win greater success in business and personal relationships. Not only does J.M. teach entrepreneurial wisdom to double growth and profit, he also just makes you feel better about yourself. He inspires others in a way that excites them to try new things with honesty, vulnerability, and service. This is not a fake it until you make it kind of coach. J.M. is an international speaker, hosts the Let's Go Win podcast, and a best-selling author of Let's Go Win, Champions Daily Playbook, and Upgrade. J.M. has been building companies and leading sales teams for over 20 years and is the founder and CEO of Let's Go Win, whose mission is to increase leadership and help teams achieve peak performance. In this episode, expect to hear the kind of leader people will follow, how to attract and create good team members, what to say when employees ask for a raise, why the abundance mindset always trumps the scarcity mindset, true authenticity and its power in persuasion, how to avoid burnout, and much more. Please welcome Mr. J.M. Ryerson. J.M., I've been looking forward to jumping in and having this conversation with you since we had the opportunity to meet a couple months ago and really just learn a lot about your world, where you come from, and it's such a foundational part of business. And, in most businesses and, my world and a lot of the people you work with today are very technically proficient. Dentists, for example, we both have the opportunity to work with a lot of dentists, and the technical skills and the training, the education is very, very specific. But we learn in life that technical skills are one piece of the applications to be, quote, successful or to find whether it's growth or expansion, whatever one's looking for. That's just one small piece. And the other aspects of people, communication skills, leadership, sales, people don't like to talk about sales, but sales are sales because you're trying to ethically get people to do things that you think are right for them. There's so much there that we never learn because there's not time for it, I guess, right? If we tried to put all that in place, and there wouldn't be application because you have to get in the real world and actually experience stubbing your toe a few times and going, what's wrong? My technical skills are really, really good, but I'm not having any success. My team hates me. My staff hates me. I hate patients. I'm going off the deep end on you here, but JM, let's go back in time. I'm kind of setting the stage here to bring you in. But let's go back in time. Where did you find your greatest affinity? I think for a lot of us, we kind of stumble into it, go through a course of education in life, and then we kind of stumble into like, oh, this is what I really seem to be good at doing. And then we go there. What was that like for you? Give us kind of your timeline going back in life, and where did you kind of get in to find out, this is where I really fit?
Yeah, that's a great point. And thank you for having me, David. I just enjoyed our conversation when you were on my podcast, and I'm just so humbled and blessed to be here. As we talked about on my show, financial literacy isn't exactly available. We're not taught that. Well, so much of sales and leadership and building teams, that's not taught either. And what I found really early, when I graduated college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, as many kids don't. And I went right into the corporate world, and I thought, you know what, this is all right for about 3.5 years until I realized you're going to tell me where I have to be every single day, and you're going to tell me how much money I can make. That doesn't add up for me. That's not cool for me. So I went down this entrepreneurial path. Now, what I figured out real quick, David, I went into the financial service world, which please don't ask me questions on that because I was never very good at it. What I figured out real quickly, what I was good at was those three things of sales, leadership, building teams. And so I just really dug in and sought out more information on how to get better. And I don't know how I exactly arrived at it. I mean, I grew up playing sports and team sports, and I loved that idea. So I think that's where the team thing came from. But the leadership, it just grabbed me, man. And I was just all in. And so it's led me down this path now, Let's Go In being my fourth company, where I just want to share as much of that as possible. Because to your point, whether it's the dentists I work with or other professionals in their specific field, they're really good at what they do, but they struggle with some of the things that I'm great at. Just like I couldn't do a cap, I couldn't do a crown, I couldn't do any of those things, but yet I can help you with your sales and building your team. So I just figured out what I was good at and I just kept running with it.
Let's talk a little bit about the leadership side. And I'm curious as to, do you recall where and how you found that that was kind of a natural gift? Most people, at least when I was growing up, leadership wasn't a word that was used often. It's more so today, but it was more about managing people. Peter Drucker, management. And I think we've evolved to, well, we want to lead people, empower people. You talked about the team building from sports, and I get that, right? Was there also a connection with leadership in sports, or was it somewhere else that you saw that, wow, you felt that you really had some ability there that was making a difference with whatever teams you were might be involved in leading?
My earliest memories of really seeing this was being on great teams versus being on really crappy teams and what this distinction was. And I was actually, I ended up playing basketball in college, but I was a far better swimmer. Well, the only reason I chose basketball is because I loved the camaraderie and being around the guys and being a captain and learning what really influenced people to put their egos aside and put the team first. And I just fell in love with it. So much so that literally the full ride scholarships I had to much better schools, at least academically, size wise, and scholarship wise, I chose to go to a much smaller school to play basketball to the chagrin of my mom and dad. And it was the best lesson, best thing I could have done because I followed my path. And what I discovered there, I had an amazing coach, Coach Mast, that I learned so much more about life than I did about basketball from the man. In fact, I blew out my knee for the third time with him as my coach. And I remember I was in the hospital knowing I wasn't going to play basketball for the man this next year. And he came and he said, sign this because the school I went to, you signed every single year. And I said, Coach, I can't play for you next year. He goes, you'll earn it. I committed to you for these 2 years, and I expect you to fulfill your commitment too. And I just remember this feeling, David, where I was like, wow, this guy's giving up a scholarship spot for a guy that's going to be, banged up, not able to play for him at all. And I did earn it. I ended up doing the shooting practices and the lifting for him. But that leadership he showed me, that servant leadership, I just said, wow, there's something there. And I just kept pursuing that both in books and in real life at various companies that I was a part of.
Here's my special request of you, my avid and loyal and faithful listeners. Of the thousands of listeners I've had in 2024, less than 10% of you are subscribed to the podcast. That means 90% of you are listening to my podcast, and yet you're not subscribed. Why not? Well, it's just because you haven't taken the time to do it. I know I get busy to the same thing, and I fail to subscribe to the content that I like. So if you enjoyed or found my content helpful, clicking the subscribe or follow button right now will help the algorithms push my content to more people who can find it just as valuable. Plus, if you are a subscriber, you ensure you won't miss any of my content or updates as soon as they come out. I am personally excited about the upcoming guests, books, and projects that I'm working on, and sincerely don't want you to miss out on any of them. So hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more. Now, back to our conversation. Take those examples and let's take them to groups and the business owners that I know you're doing a lot of work with today, which is common to what I do with a lot of dentists. And being that I was a clinical practicing dentist for many years, I totally understand the conflicts that a dentist often goes through in trying to be very precise and literally in the mouth, and yet having all this going on around on the outside. And many times feeling that the world's out to get him or her. It's not fair. And I'm just trying to do really good work that I was trained to do. And I'm proud of the work I can do, but doggone it, I got all these other misfit situations and people that seem to always get in my way and trip me up every darn day I go up, and I'm just getting burned out. And the burnout is real. And not just dentistry, and burnout in lots of industries and lots of business owners and companies is real. So let's talk about how you take leadership and how you attract the right people and then empower, coach, mentor. Give us some examples of that, because I know you work with dentists and teams on a regular basis. What's that look like?
Yeah, you know what the great news is? It's actually pretty simple. And the first thing I'm going to start with is perfection is the enemy of greatness. So, for you doctors out there that are listening, you are all about being perfect inside the mouth, where you are very small and it's your perfection is your barrier of entry. That's a hard place to live, and that's where, as you mentioned, David, burnout is such a huge part of not only dentistry, as you said, but professionally out there. Well, you can't be perfect when it comes to leadership because you're dealing with people. And that's going to ultimately be a little messy because everybody is inspired differently and we're motivated differently and we take accountability differently. And so, what I've found specifically with doctors, I'm like, look, let's give yourself a little grace. You accomplished great things all the way through school. You got, typically straight A's, went on to your dental school and you crushed it there. So, you thinking I'm not a good leader, let's give yourself a little grace. You are a great leader, but you got to believe it yourself. And here's why I say it's easy. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get real clear on who do we want to have on the team. So, if you want to have driven team members, we should probably go look for that. Don't go look for somebody that you're going to micromanage if you want somebody driven. That's not going to work. And so, what I do is I really get them clear on what are the cultural values of our company. And we're going to have three of them, no more. Why three? Because after three, you have the law of diminishing return. Cool. So once we find out what are the three values that we want, we're going to put that out to the world. Everybody's going to know the Ryerson family, dentistry stands for, I'll use Let's Go Win as my company, happy, healthy, wealthy. Those are the three cultural values I'm looking for. Well, I'm going to activate the reticular activating system in my brain, the prefrontal cortex, and I'm going to go look for people that are happy, healthy, and wealthy. And when I see them and I find them, great, I'm going to bring them on my team. Now, the last part that you have to do is just provide vision so that they know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Now, does that mean you never check in on them again? No, of course not. We want to do check ins, but it's not micromanagement, it's setting the expectations and checking in with them. When you follow that simple idea, so you're not going to be perfect as a leader. Who are we as a team? You go find those people, set the expectations, and check in with them once a week. Guess what? Your practice starts to thrive, starts to become the vision that you want. And now it doesn't have to be so drama filled. Now you can actually have fun again and do what you love, which is drilling teeth, taking care of the patients. But I know it gets messy because you're trying to wear every single hat. You're trying to micromanage. And guess what? We all only have 24 hours in the day. So that micromanagement isn't an effective tool.
So, got to give up some of the perfectionism to allow people, which we're talking about people here, to take some empowerment, to make some decisions. And even if they don't do it exactly the way we would do, or you could even say maybe they made a mistake, we have to allow for that if we've chosen the right people and coach. And I know you've got a specific way of doing that. I'm sure in your protocols. When you work with a doctor and his team, and let's just say that when you do your assessment, yeah, there's probably people that are on the team that probably shouldn't be on the team. How do you help coach a leader through the process of a transition or migration from existing, not so good? Maybe there's a one or two potentially bright shining stars, but they're being contaminated by a negative culture. Do you have to wipe the slate clean? Can you migrate over time? But what if you have people that need to self sabotage? I mean, I'm just speaking the language because I've been there. How do you go through that transition? Because it's a little scary to think about turning over an entire team, because like well, we kind of get used to what we have, and like they at least are keep me treading water here. If I dismantle this team, like I'm not going to know anything because I got no help, and where do I go?
Yeah, there's a saying that I've used, and it won't be the first time people have heard it, but I certainly employ it, which is I'm slow to hire and I'm quick to fire. Now, when I say quick to fire, I don't mean I go in looking to fire people. Actually, the polar opposite. I want to make sure that we have the right people on the team sitting in the right chair. Here's an example I'll give you. I walked in, and this guy, Jeff, was known as literally, this guy is the devil. And I mean, no one likes him. He is awful. And I sit down with Jeff and have my hour long debrief, get to know him, just kind of fact find. And for 56 minutes, David, this guy is living up to the bill. I'm like, he is a class A jerk, like, not a fan. And I asked Jeff at the last 4 minutes, I said, hey, I noticed that you are in recruiting, but yet on your resume, it looks like you have a real marketing background. He goes, yeah, I love marketing. I said, well, can I ask you, what do you love recruiting? He's like, no, I hate it, but this is what I got hired for. I said, okay, what if we considered maybe pushing you over to marketing? Would that be of interest? That'd be amazing. Talk to the CEO, make this move. I walk in the door 3 months later, and Jeff is like, I mean, literally Moses parting the Red Sea. Everybody loves him because he's happy. He's thriving in the area that he should have been in the beginning. So, what I try to do is I figure out, are you part of the culture? So, first thing you need to do is define your culture. I have what's called the one sheet I help every company arrive at. It's who we are, how we behave, what are we trying to accomplish? And the whole idea is we're going to row the boat in the same direction. If you don't have this, oftentimes you have people that don't know exactly what's expected of them. How am I supposed to show up and behave? And next thing you know, you have a problem on your hands. Well, the reason is actually you didn't define how they're supposed to show up. And so now you have all these little micro problems and all this drama happening when the truth is you just didn't set it up properly. Once we do that, now life becomes really easy, and people will either know this is my home. I want to be a part of like your team. I want to be a part of Freedom Founders, man. I know who they are. Or, you know what? They stand for freedom. That's really not my thing. I like to control it the whole way through, and I don't want to have that. Great. Let's see ourselves, see our way out of it. It becomes very clear when they're not a part of the team, they will see themselves out. And it's so much easier than it has to be. But yet, as we started at the beginning of the show, it wasn't taught. You weren't taught these things in the MBA program that people go to. These are things that you have to find out along the way. And again, you didn't learn it in dental school. This is why my job is so easy, is I get to go in and help them define their culture, and it's becomes really easy at that point.
The one sheet that you helped the teams co-create, you talked about setting the values and the leader setting the vision, which is important. Once you've helped that leader define vision, am I assuming correctly that values and really the one page of expectations and what we're about and what we're trying to achieve and outcomes, is that a collaborative process with the entire team, assuming we've chosen the right people, or at least we think we have the right people and on the right seats? Is that how it works?
So I've done it with both. I've done it just with the doctors and then the leaders. And I've also done it with full practices. I would say it depends on the size of your practice and how harmonious your practice is going. I've done one as short as 45 minutes. I've had some take 2 days to get real clear on this one sheet. But what's awesome, David, once we arrive at it, everybody has it in front of them. And so if there's a misbehavior, so for instance, we have a growth mindset would be one of the behaviors of my company. If somebody acts in a fixed mindset way, I don't say, Nisha, who's on my team, you have a fixed mindset. I say, hey, Nisha, can you see how you're not adhering to how we behave in this instant? Now I'm no longer pointing fingers. Nisha says, oh my gosh, you're right. No problem. I'll work on it. That's what happens in every practice and company I work with, is when we define not only the values of who we are, but how we behave. Now people have a baseline of how they're supposed to show up. Because the challenge is oftentimes we just assume everybody should act the same way
Mhm.
that we do.
Right.
Well, they don't have the same lens. They weren't raised the same way you were. So we want to define that our practice or company is X. And then you will know, like, man, I really jive with this people. These are my people. Or, you know what? I think I made a mistake. And that's where when you actually let somebody go, it's a relief for them and for you. It's like they weren't the right person to begin with. Let's get them on to be happy at another place and find somebody that will really thrive in your practice.
A lot of business owners have felt a little bit under the gun kind of since COVID and what was called the Great Resignation. People didn't want to go to work. They were getting paychecks from home, and getting people back to work offices has been a struggle. And even in that respect, there's been, because of the higher cost of living that everybody's experiences, there's been also kind of a demand across the board for higher wages. And in doing so, I think there's more stress on business owners and trying to figure out profit margins in an environment where there is higher costs of everything. From the standpoint of measuring value of our humans, our staff, our people that are so important, where do you try to help doctors assess the value and the propensity to try to, well, I need to cut my overhead, therefore I can only pay so much? Do you find that to be kind of a conversation that you have to help with there? Because I feel both sides of it. I know that A players, if you really have A players, they should receive a compensation commensurate with their capabilities. But on the other side, is everything about money, and how much is culture and having, quote, a happy place to come to? How important is that in your experience in overall team building?
Yeah, I love when people come to me and they're like, I want more money. And it's actually one of my favorite things when an employee comes to me and says, you know what, I want more money. Guess what? There's an opportunity there. I want to create that for them. So for me, David, I am not the guy that's going to come in and slash your overhead. That's not actually my role. My role is to double or triple your revenue, which is my track record with any company I've worked with. Now, how do we do it? Very easy. If somebody wants more money, let's create how is that going to work? Oftentimes, there's not enough people in chairs that are being taken care of on an efficient manner. Well, how do we get better at that? A referral system. Well, what do you mean, JM? I don't have a referral system. People just send me referrals. That's maybe something that we can improve upon. So when I have somebody come to me and they're like, look, JM, I need two, $3, $4 more an hour. Great. Let's figure out a way that we can do that for you. How much is a new patient worth to the practice when you bring them in? Let's say it's, I don't know, $1,500 is a new patient, which is not uncommon. Okay, great. If you bring in 10 patients per month, no problem. That $4 an hour is absolutely not a problem at all. But often, what most people hear is they just want more money and then we shut down. I like to look at it as what is the opportunity and how can they support the growth of the business? Because I believe in abundance. I believe that we can create our reality. Well, how do we do that? We set up, whether it's, again, a lot of people, it's Google reviews. For me, it's referrals. That's how I built my first three businesses. That's how I continue to build businesses. So I just look at that opportunity and say, all right, here's the challenge. Here's a potential solution. Set the expectation. If they hit it, great. Here's your extra money. If they choose not to and choose to leave, they probably weren't the right person to begin with.
You mentioned a philosophy of abundance. What are some of the common, if there are common ones, but what are some of the ones that you've seen of limiting beliefs that a doctor, an owner, a leader may have that may be inhibiting their ability to grow and be better leaders? What do you see? And then how do you help them overcome some of those self-limiting beliefs?
Yeah, I love this question, David, because we all have them. And by the way, most of those self limiting beliefs were given to you. They weren't something that you went out and said, oh, I want to have the self limiting belief. Your mom, dad, grandparents, friends, at some point you inherited these beliefs. And I can speak very clearly on this because I had one when it came to money and I overcame that once I realized it. But specific to your question, with doctors I see all the time, there's the scarcity mindset like this is my little pocket and I'm not going to share with other doctors in the area. I think it's one of the worst things you can do and here's why. Does everybody that walks through your door like you? The answer is no. And I don't care if you're Mother Teresa. There are people out there that didn't like her, and she's an incredibly like angelic, she's giving. Well, some people aren't going to like you. And by the way, the other doctor across the street is going to have that same experience. Why not open up dialogue and create a relationship with that doc to say, you know what? If you have patients that aren't really your cup of tea, but would be a great fit for us, would you mind sending them our way? And by the way, vice versa. I find so often now when you create that, now you have a community with somebody across the street, you can talk about some of the same challenges that you're having and you create more abundance. You know what? We're dealing with this same challenge that you are. What did you do to overcome it? And I found this to be not just in dentistry, so we're clear. In the financial service world I grew up in, man, it was like if you have a secret, you just hold on to it. Well, the problem is it doesn't grow if you're holding on to it. When you share it out there and say, here's what I found, now they're starting to show some of the good things to you, and both of you are building a more profitable practice. In fact, I did a podcast with a guy named Bill Dorfman, the Michael Jordan of dentistry. At least
Right.
that's what he said. And the way he learned his practice is he went around to all the various places in Beverly Hills before he started his practice and took all the good from each one and created his practice. Well, that's a great idea. He didn't go in there and be like, I'm your new competition. We're not going to share. He asked questions, observed, and literally brought it to his practice. And he has a thriving or had an extremely thriving practice in Beverly Hills. So that's what I see. Self-limiting beliefs is like, I need to hold on to it. This is mine and I'm not going to share it. The world doesn't work that way. You got to share the information and it'll become very reciprocal with your neighbors out there as well.
JM, you've said and you've written about a particular aspect of leadership, and you call it showing up as you. Can you explain how that works?
So, all your Freedom Founder members that are listening, David is a great example of this. He shows up in the most authentic way that I have seen in recent times, where he's extremely vulnerable. He puts himself out there. Well, guess what? People will follow that guy all day long, guy or gal. If you show up truly authentic with, here's everything, we're going to open the kimono and you can see everything. When you do that, when you show up as your authentic self, people will 100% go, you know what? I can follow that guy or gal. When you try to look a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way, and it's not authentic, people can see right through that too. And I can speak from this from experience because my first company and a half, I was the suit and tie guy, buttoned up, and I had to look a certain way and sound a certain way. And guess what? Everybody saw right through it, man. I'm a kid from Montana that likes jeans and a t-shirt, just like I'm wearing today. I'm wearing a hoodie, man. This is who I am. And it's a piece of clothing, but I feel extremely comfortable in just being who I am. And I saw that, David, out in Dallas when I met you the first time. You literally said, all right, guys, we're going to talk about everything. We're going to put it out there. And people resonated with it because you weren't hiding behind, we have a challenge here. You said, here it is. How are we going to deal with this challenge? Here's a potential solution. Are you guys on board? And everybody's like, yeah, that sounds good. The unknown, and when you try and mask everything, that's when people are like, ooh, I don't trust that. I literally wrote about it in my first book. Masks are for parties, they're not meant for real life. Take the masks off. It's so much easier, time, energy wise, to just be you. So that's what I mean by show up as you. Whatever that authentic person is, really try to find that again, because so often we try to fit in, look a certain way, and it's just not authentic. People won't follow it anyway.
That's so true. We look for people, not only just in our own lives, but people that we see maybe on TV or somewhere, and we go, well, I like the way that person carries himself and how they say things, but you can't mimic somebody you're not. And if you try to be somebody you're not, then it becomes very obvious. And then, as you said, you're not authentic. So I appreciate that, because I think all of us, certainly myself, at times in life, I've thought, well, I need to show up differently here, because this is a situation where I guess I can't show that I have some vulnerabilities. I have some fear. Nope. Everybody has them. And I think you show up more as a human in those cases, even though we think of leadership as being strong, right? And leadership, it does have a component of strength, but also a component of transparency, vulnerability, and authenticity that goes along with it. So finding what works there, I think, is sometimes a little bit difficult. And I think it helps to have somebody from the outside that can kind of weigh in and give us the confidence, be who you are.
Yeah, I remember being at a dinner. It was in Salt Lake City, and my business partner and I were considering partnering with a couple of folks that were LDS, which means typically they don't drink alcohol. I like glasses of wine, David. I like wine, especially if I'm at a steakhouse. And I remember my business partner saying, everybody's going around to order, and he's like, I'll have an iced tea. Well, his name was Rich. He loves wine too, but I was like, okay. I ordered a wine and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm being me, man. Well, it couldn't have gone better because, again, if I sat there and just tried to look like they did because I wanted to fit in, well, now I'm entering the relationship inauthentically to begin with. And long term, they're going to see right through that. We're going to go to another steakhouse. I'm going to have wine at some point. And so that's why I just, learned early on. I was like, dude, I don't have the time or energy to try and look different. I'm just going to be me. And the people that resonate with that, we're going to build some amazing things together. And if I don't resonate, that's cool too. We know automatically I'm not your cup of tea and you're not mine. We move forward. So it's so easy to just be you. But I understand, again, we learn at sixth, seventh, eighth grade, got to fit in. You want to fit in, you want to be liked. But the truth is, your authentic self is the most likable, most powerful way you can show up.
Yeah, very well said. We've talked about leadership and teams, team building. Let's talk for a few minutes about sales, that word that oftentimes is frowned upon. Well, I'm in the service business. I provide healthcare. I don't sell anything, so I'm not going to touch that. Self-limiting belief, a little bit, maybe, perhaps, right there in front of us. I know that it can be both the very talented doctors who provide absolute exquisite care, don't want to sell. It's uncomfortable. And then there's also the team. The team has to also have the confidence to know that when you are offering, providing diagnostic planning to help the health of somebody, that can be done in a way that is, quote, not salesy, but sales again has that bad connotation. So what's your short take on how you talk about sales?
Yeah, so sales is life, so we're clear. So if I want to go golfing, I'm going to sell my wife on why I need to. By the way, she's going to sell me on why she needs to go have dinner with her girlfriends. And that is literally sales. You're influencing each other to say, I'll show up as a better person. It's oftentimes when I hear people say this, because this is common. I don't want to be that used car salesman or that greasy car salesman. Okay, cool. But the truth is, if you don't share your knowledge, if you don't tell them about this amazing care, now you're just being selfish. So, what I teach people is when it comes to sales. So, if I was a patient of yours, David, and you were uncomfortable with sales, but you had something really good that I should have, I would tell you it's really selfish because I'm a buyer, man. I like sales. If you tell me this is going to be good for me, I'm like, yes, thank you. So if you stop thinking about yourself and you just start thinking about, I want to serve, well, part of serving is selling them whatever product or service that they need. It shouldn't feel gross if you're literally trying to provide the best service. And that's the one thing I will say about every doctor I've met thus far. They are servant leaders. They got into dentistry because of some typically traumatic thing happened where they were like, I want to change confidence because of smiles, or I was bullied, so I'm going to help others. Great. Don't think about yourself in this sales situation. Think about this person and the amazing product or service that you have. When you can do that, now sales becomes really easy.
You told me once when we had a conversation not too long ago, JM, that oftentimes when you are having a coaching, mentoring call with one of your clients, one of your doctors, that many times the conversation revolves around you kind of prompting that doctor, what are you doing for you? This is not martyrdom, but I think a lot of times, and you know it, leaders, people who want to do well and support not only their families, but also their businesses, their staff, their team. We care about them. We care about our patients. We care about a lot of people. And I think at the risk of, and you know as well as anybody, the risk of not taking care of ourselves. It's kind of like, on the plane, and what they say is put your oxygen mask on first, because if you don't, how many people are you going to help if you run around and you're out of air? So talk a little bit about sometimes how those conversations go and why you believe they're important to focus sometimes on one's inner self.
So the whole reason I found dentistry is, unfortunately, dentistry has a title that's not one that anybody should be proud of, and that is it has the highest level of suicide of any occupation in the United States. Okay. Now, my dad, that's how I lost my dad about 2.5 years ago. Well, what does that have to do with one another? It has everything to do with taking care of you first. And it's become so much more of just, okay, cool, I can help somebody double or triple their revenue. It's so much bigger than that. I want people to, as you said, pour into themselves so that they can then go pour into their patients, into their team, into their spouse, into their kids. But if you don't take care of you first, you're trying to pour out of an empty bucket. It doesn't work. And so the basis of what I'm really proud of, the work that I do, is really getting people to focus on them first so that you can show up as the best, again, leader, best dentist, best dad, best mom, best whatever hat you're wearing. But it starts by taking care of you first. And when we talked about burnout, that's where that comes from, is because you are trying to take care and serve everyone else first. That's the most selfish thing you can do. The most unselfish thing you can do is make sure that you get up a little bit earlier, 15 minutes, and take care of your mind, your body, and your soul every single day. If you do that, you learn to fill your cup first. Now your cup runneth over, and now you can start to give to everyone else. But yeah, David, I appreciate you bringing that up because this is something I'm passionate about. It's something that is my driving force in dentistry and professional lives in general. Is, look, if you're not filling your cup, you can't fill anyone else's. The shelf life on that is not long, and it leads to all the unfortunate things that it can lead to, whether that be depressed or burnout or just not showing up as the best version of you.
I wanted to kind of end on that because we talked about a lot of things that are important: teams, leadership, ethical influence of people. But I wanted to not end this episode without what you had provided to me as to like what your real drive is. And it came from, a personal tragedy in your own life, which is oftentimes what does drive us to serve the greater good and put the other components around it that we can go out in the world and hopefully make the world a better place for those that we have the blessing to serve. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront. JM, you've also written a host of books. One is Let's Go Win, Champions Daily Playbook, and Upgrade. Those are all available. Where else can people go to follow you, find you, connect with you?
Yeah, I would say letsgowin.com is the easiest place. There's lots of free resources. I'm also in partnership with Sunrise Dental Solutions, and I know Chris Phelps, and you know each other pretty well, David. And the ability to serve the doctors out there, and not being a doctor myself, it's been fantastic. So if you don't see me on letsgowin.com, check out Sunrise Dental Solutions, because if you want to take your practice to the next level, really creating more financial freedom, as you talk about with your group, David, we can absolutely help there. So, and I just want to say thank you for having me on, brother. You're just an amazing human being. The way you show up, it's so genuine and authentic, and it's not easy to find these days. So I just want to say thank you for having me.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I want to give you an opportunity because I ask you a lot of questions. And did I leave anything out that you'd like to finish out with? Is there something that you can think of that I just want to say this one more thing? If there isn't, that's fine. But if there is, if something you want to leave with the audience, then I'm going to give you that opportunity without me prompting anything at all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you did ask so many good questions. I think that authenticity and taking care of yourself. I've done a deep dive on what winning means, and you're going to find one word that's evident every single time: self love, self development, self care. The word self is so important. Winning and self are synonymous. So if you're not in the position you want to be in, you might want to look at yourself. And what, for me, self stands for strengths, energy, love, and freedom. And there's three buckets: emotional, mental, and physical in each bucket. And it would take too long to go through it all. But what I would say is just take care of yourself. That is paramount to you being the best version of you.
That's great. James Ryerson, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for being on today. We'll definitely come back and do some additional discoveries into some of the areas, as I know the experience you have is ongoing and you're helping so many people. Thank you again.
Thank you.
My interview with James Ryerson came with many takeaways that I think are worth dwelling on. Here are some highlights I'd love to elaborate on. Perfection is the enemy of greatness. For me, this has definitely been a hindrance in my life. And I think there's areas in life, depending upon what we strive to do, maybe what our training is in, where getting as close to perfection is never possible, but getting as close to perfection is important. For example, if you are an engineer dealing with high-level math or science, or if you are an accountant, you're dealing with numbers, statistics. In my case, being in the healthcare profession, dentistry, anything to do with the human body, getting as close to perfection is important because the lapse in focus on doing the absolute very best we can in these areas can have dramatic downside effects on the people, the patients, the clients, the customers who we want to serve. So that's important to have that high bar in the right place. However, in many areas of life where the downside risk is not so great, in other words, where real people can't be hurt to a great degree, I think in those cases, we need to learn to take more risk and take more chances, particularly when it comes to ourselves, and expand our horizons, get out of that cliched comfort zone in life, and expect to have some failures, things that don't go right. We can't be perfect in everything. And the more we strive to perfection in everything we do, particularly in our own personal growth, our entrepreneurship, in our desire to have a life with more impact and significance and purpose, I think we've got to expect to take some chances, take some risk, and not worry about what the results are, at least initially. Leadership isn't about managing people. It's about empowering and inspiring them. This is also, I think, an area that many of us, especially in our early years in life, we think about having to manage a lot of things or manage people. And managing people, I think, only gets us a certain amount of results in life. Managing people means we basically tell people what to do. We task them with specific tasks. We give them a list, an outline. Here's what I need you to go get done today. And when you get it done, then report back or send me the results. And the downside of that is that we can't really grow. We can't grow a business. We can't grow the impact of that business to more people or to a deeper depth. And we can't grow our people. And if anything, when we're in a business or we're leading a business, we are about growing people, because that's what in turn impacts the people, the customers, patients, clients that we want to serve, is through our people. We don't do it all ourselves. We know that. You've got to have people around you to do what you want to do and do it well. So if we're trying to manage and really overtask people and stay on top of them to see what they're doing, that never really gives them a chance to really expand and empower them to own the outcome. When you create a vision within a culture of people where you empower them to take a certain project or maybe a process and describe together with them what it is that you as the visionary desire as the outcome. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want the results to be for your clients, your patients, your customers? And once that vision is clear, the outcome is clear, the right people will take that and create the actual process or the systems or the project or the research and bring back to you a result that maybe needs a little bit of finesse, but that way you stay out of the actual process. Give them the opportunity to go forward and own something. That's probably the biggest area of satisfaction that people strive for in their work life. Those who have the opportunity to be empowered by leaders who let them own something and take care of it and be responsible for it, even if they don't get it perfect, because who gets anything perfect? It just gives them that feeling of self-satisfaction. And that's where you have happy people also helping the clients, customers, and patients also be happy with the results that will be achieved. Define who you are, how you behave, and what you are trying to accomplish, and then row the boat in the same direction. This comes back to, again, I think creating in a company or in any kind of a group effort where you as the leader, if you are the leader or whoever the leader is, needs to help the group, guide the group to defining what the vision is, what the outcome is, what kind of results are you trying to create, what problems are you trying to solve for the people who you desire to serve. And once you get specific about that, who it is you're trying to help, what problem you're trying to overcome, and then what that result needs to look like. Once you define that together as a group, now you have the ability to say, okay, now let's go forward and do it. And each person on the team can then own a specific aspect of that based on what their skill sets are. And that's a whole nother discussion. But having the right people in the right seats and with a defined mission, a goal, then it's easier to reach that goal because everybody's moving together on an overall mission. And having milestones and checkpoints along the way is a lot easier when people understand where they're trying to go versus each day showing up and saying, well, what do I have to do today? And not having a vision for whatever they do has any purpose in it. Purpose and meaning is the critical part of making us all vibrant in life and keeps us really, I think, fully deployed ourselves. Whether you're the CEO, owner, visionary, or if you're one of the people who are there to help the team overall achieve the results and goals that you're trying to achieve. The world doesn't work in scarcity. When you share your knowledge, it multiplies and abundance follows. So this is an area that I think, again, a lot of people misunderstand or misconstrue. And the thinking is, if I know something, if I have some inside information, if I have a skill set, a resource, something that I know that I've learned that could help other people, if I give that out to other people, then other people are going to, well, they could be my competition. And then I've just given away the secrets to my success. And now other people will pull away from my ability to be who I want to be and what kind of profits or impact I want to have with my company. The problem with that kind of mindset is that not sharing, not collaborating really keeps a lid or a ceiling on, I think, the ability to grow a company and have greater impact. The synergy and collaboration is a multiplier. Think in terms of the fact that life overall is not a zero-sum game. In other words, there's not only so much of a pie for any group or person to solve problems. There's always going to be problems in life, and that's what we do as companies. Any company produces services or products that serve to solve problems for a certain cohort. And by sharing ideas, that's where innovation comes from. So if you have an idea and it's served well for you and you share that with other people, even within your own industry, somebody's going to pick up on that and say, great idea, and then take it back to their laboratory, which is their business, and say, what can we do to take this already great idea that John Smith gave us through his willingness to be open and share? What can we do to even maybe take it to another level, or even within that company, twist and turn it and innovate it to something else? This is how the world and technology in all areas of life expands, by sharing information and not keeping it within the walls of one's own knowledge base. The most unselfish thing that you can do is make sure that you get up a little bit earlier, maybe 15 minutes, and take care of your mind, your body, and your soul every single day. I think the last thing that most of us as entrepreneurs do is self-care. We feel like we're built to be that John Wayne individualist, that rugged individualist, that we can take on everything in life because that's just how we've been built. And I'm not saying that's a bad characteristic, but the problem is eventually that demeanor of just trying to take it all on yourself and not look out for yourself. It's kind of like, in the airline industry, you're always told to put your oxygen mask on first, then you can help other people. And if you don't take care of yourself, put your oxygen mask on from time to time, take some respite, take care of your mind, body, your soul on some regular basis, then you're eventually going to burn out because nobody is immortal in respect to be able to carry on without some kind of respite care. So for me, staying healthy is a composition of taking time every day, as JM laid out here in his kind of motive or mandate, taking time every day, sometime. He says 15 minutes early. That could be it. For me, it's walks. And it's walks with my dog. It's going to the gym where I am physically involved doing something, because physical activity is always important. And that stimulates my mind. And if I'm not being distracted by other things, which I'm not at the gym, I can just be open and free. My mind has a chance to really just be more creative and more open. And it's those times that really give me that inner feeling of feeling more complete, more content, more satisfied, but also gives me the resurgence of energy if I need that, to say, what have I learned this week? What have I learned today? How can I take that forward and not only do something better for myself, but also the people I care about, the people I'm trying to serve. So again, be selfish. Entrepreneurs out there, be selfish. Create that time for you. You deserve it, and you can only have more impact by taking care of yourself. One last quote I'd like to bring to the forefront, and this is from Ariana Huffington of the Huffington Post. She said, "We need to accept that we won't always make the right decisions, that we'll screw up royally sometimes, understanding that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of success." Again, this goes to all of us, and I put myself in the category of trying to be a perfectionist, like not have failures. I always want to feel like I've accomplished things at a high level, that not that I'm better than other people, but I always wanted the high marks in school, right? And who doesn't? Who doesn't really want to achieve something well and be respected for that? I think that's important. But at the same time, we have to realize that, again, growth, personal growth, whether it's for yourself, individually, for the company, for the impact that you're trying to have, it only comes by trying new things. And very few of us are good right out of the gate of doing new things. There's always a trial period. And maybe some things are not to be pursued, but we don't know that until we try it. Try something. If you try something, it doesn't work. Either you make some pivots, you iterate and move it a different direction, or you just put that actual thing aside and say, not for me or not now, and go on to something else. But until we put ourselves out there and stop overanalyzing every decision we make, every move we make, we stop overanalyzing, because overanalyzing will just lead to procrastination. Procrastination just lets innovation die. And that's not what we're about in life. To stay vibrant and stay engaged with who we are and what we want to achieve in life, we've got to be willing to take some risk. And with that risk comes some failures, some setbacks, but that's only part of the process of gaining success in the goals that you want to achieve.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this conversation, click that subscribe or follow button. It lets us know what you want to hear more of and pushes this episode out to more people. One more thing. One of the greatest joys in my life right now is helping others take control of their lives in every aspect and watching them reshape their lives. Most believe in order to do this, you must first achieve financial freedom. And yes, it's incredibly helpful once you no longer have to work for your income for yourself. However, you can start making progress on your freedoms and your desired life today. Yes, achieving such a life requires getting your finances in order and replacing your income little by little, but it also requires mindset shifts. Working with your spouse or significant other, having the hard conversations, getting educated, and creating the relationships that will help you along the way. These are all keys that I found in my life, and I want you to have the same thing. This is the adventure we embark on in Freedom Founders. Self-awareness, growth, expanding what you thought was possible. The ones who have taken this path have discovered life-changing relationships, financial freedom, and a passion and purpose for life just beyond your occupation. If you're ready to take action and take control of your life today, then my team would love to discuss how we can help you. Go to freedomfounders.com/discover to schedule your call. That's freedomfounders.com/discover. I hope to hear from you soon.